We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And welcome back to another episode of the Golden Blogs podcast, the Bearcast. We're back.
We are back,
We're
baby.
back. It's been 2 weeks since we've recorded a podcast.
What an unfortunate series of events to be talking about this whatever the heck happened on Saturday.
I don't know. I really don't know. We'll get into it.
Saddle up. It's going to be a nice depressing one today, folks.
Is it? What are the right words? What are the right words to describe how we're going to talk today? Is it anger? Is it depression?
No, yeah. Like I literally went through all of the emotions. I was
grief,
pissed off after that game.
What are the four? Is it the 4 stages of grief?
I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I went through all
anger,
of them.
depression. It's
At some point you come around.
Yeah, that's the last step. But then there's like
I'm not there yet.
An inability to accept like what happened. That's one of them, right?
Dude,
I think so.
Denial.
That's what the word is. Denial. Yeah, denial, depression, anger. I think are 3 of them. So we did go all through all 4 stages.
I went anger. Then I was like, it didn't happen. No game was played yesterday. Someone asked one of the Oregon guys I was with 2 weeks ago. I was like, what happened yesterday? And my response was, what are you talking about?
I was in a coma for 24 hours. And
I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't at Memorial Stadium. I wasn't at homecoming. I never go to homecoming.
Oh, man. All right. So some housekeeping. If you're listening to this, that means 2 podcasts before this, we had a pretty fun episode with Kevin Riley. So I highly recommend you guys go check that one out. It was great talking to him. It's great because we have a means of communication with him now. So we talk to him every once in a while through Twitter and ask him for his insight, and it's good. I think long term, we can ask him to come on the pod again and with less technical difficulties. And I think he's gonna be a very fun guest going forward to constantly ask on his thoughts, especially with the quarterbacks issue that we currently are with.
Yeah, it was so enlightening and refreshing and fun, and he's doing really well. So it was just an amazing example of somebody that dealt with adversity at a young age and did really well coming out the other side. And on top of it, his memory is ridiculous. We were just talking about how good his memory was of he's calling out what the defensive formation was and the particular plays, and we're just
he remembers not only the formation in place, but remembers where players were lined up.
Yeah,
he was talking about that final play against Oregon State in 2007. He was it was a trips left with Deshaun running point, and I don't even remember who was in on that play. But he remembers everything. That's incredible. That tells you what you need to be a successful Division I quarterback too. But so take a listen to that if you haven't listened to that. But other housekeeping news is, let's see. Do we have anything from the website? No. Do we have anything on Twitter? Not that I can think of. We will be going through your questions, but So that'll be on that. We changed the format just for today, just because of the game and other topics that stem from the game that we need to talk about. And hopefully we answer a lot of the questions that you guys had, because we want to keep our conversation a little bit more expansive instead of cutting it and getting to the next question and so on. So that's what we'll do. But Andy, we have two comments.
2 reviews.
2 reviews.
And if you don't know, I will repeat it. If you leave us a review
On Apple Podcasts.
good or bad, we will read it out loud. I will read it out loud on the next episode of the podcast. We're pretty good about following through on this.
Yeah, so Apple Podcasts is the only place you can review, I believe.
Yep.
So that's the only, like, even though we're on, like, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all that good stuff, like, or Google Play, you can't review podcasts on there. Apple Podcasts is still the only one. So that's the only way you're going to be able to hear your own comments on the air. But fire away, Andy.
Here we go.
What do we got?
Great Cal Bears coverage. This is from October 6th, 2019, from Golden Bear 92. Maybe he was born in 1992.
Or
Maybe
graduated in 92?
he or she is 92 years old. Graduated in 1992. We don't know. I enjoy the well-informed and intelligent breakdowns and analysis of Cal football games. I always learn inside knowledge about Cal and football in general with every episode. Keep up the great work. Go Bears. Thank you very much, Golden Bear 92.
Thank you so much.
The other one is from Will Chung. It says October 8th, 2019. Go Bears. Look forward to this podcast every week. The guys are really insightful when breaking down each game, and I learned something new each time. Thank you, Rob, Andy, and everybody for articulating so well the roller coaster of emotions that comes with being a Cal fan. The lows are quite sucky, but the highs are so sweet. Go Bears. And isn't that just a perfect review to go into what was the suckiest of the suck, the low of the low, Saturday's football game?
All right. So before we delve into it, let me go through the basic stats of the game, what happened, all that good stuff. So here we go. Cal takes on Oregon State on October 19th, 11:30 kickoff. I have some words about that 11:30 kickoff, but I will save that for later. Cal loses to Oregon State 21-17. Oregon State, wins this game behind.
Hilarious.
Players.
What planet are you from? Oregon State didn't win this game.
Behind Jake Luton and his 18 of 34 passing with no interceptions, 174 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was also sacked 5 times.
How many yards?
174 yards. Rushing wise, Artavis Pierce, 23 carries for 86 yards, no touchdowns. Jamar Jefferson did not play as expected, so that was huge going into it. From the Cal side, Devon Modster, 12 of 27 with 1 touchdown, sacked 7 times, and for 151 yards. Or not, he wasn't sacked for 151 yards. He threw for 151 yards. He also was the leading rusher for the Bears with a net 76, but he gained 109. So I think the losses include his sacks. So 19 carries for 109 yards gained, 33 loss, 76 net, no touchdowns. Christopher Brown Jr., 15 carries for 50 yards and 1 touchdown. Actually, 49.
You know what's crazy about that is even with Modster's ridiculous rushing stats, like our average was still like 2.5 per carry.
Yep, 2.5, exactly 2.5. But this isn't sack adjusted.
No,
so
I know.
Yeah, that you just have to take that into account.
But like, I guess actually Modster was only averaging 4, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, because
Trash.
Spencer Brash, who came in later, was sacked twice, right? And that was negative 19. So that adds to our rushing stat combined. So
All right, fine.
But anyways,
Still ain't great.
Yeah, still ain't great. Continuing, Nico Remigio leading all wide receivers with 4 receptions on 51 yards with a long of 17. Defensively, Evan Weaver leading the way with 21 total tackles, 2 sacks, two tackles for loss. Followed by Coin Deng with 11 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 QB hurry. The other big name that played well was Cam Good, 5 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 2.5 tackles for a loss, along with 2 QB hurries. That's pretty much it. I mean, the Bears were down 14-3 going into halftime. And then they come back in the third quarter, roar 14 points, and they're up by 3. Towards the end of the fourth quarter, they give up a long drive to Oregon State and then a touchdown. And with Monster out, I believe either the drive prior or 2 drives prior, the Bears just can't get back with Spencer Brash being forced onto there with 2 minutes left with no timeouts and all that good stuff of a true freshman going out there and asking him to win a game with his arm. So that's it. That's how it happened. Do you have any general thoughts on the game first, or do you just want to go straight into our points?
I just feel like someone just punched me in the face.
It feels like it. It felt like it. I mean, okay, let's recap here. Both of us were in the booth. You left right before Monster got hurt.
No.
Or did you leave after he got hurt?
I left after.
You left after he got hurt, but
2:30.
you didn't get to see Brash throw.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was after they scored.
Yeah.
But I didn't leave out of like I'm leaving. I had to go to an event my wife was having, but like I had a hard stop at 2:30, so I just had to leave at 2:30.
And that's exactly when
Right
that
after
happened.
they scored.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but about 2:25, I turned to you and said something. They were like at the 30-yard line. OSU was at the 30 or 40-yard line.
I think we were basically saying the same thing, right? If they score here, we're done.
I said, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt that way after they scored 2 touchdowns in a row and we had no answer. We were down 14-0, and the way our offense was going in the first half, I was like, we haven't had a single game where we've made offensive adjustments coming out of halftime. There's no way we're coming back from this.
Yeah, and to be fair, like it's pretty generous saying that we even like made offensive adjustments. Like the biggest play happened when I thought this might be the game where I could make an argument that my preseason prediction about Stephen Coots came true, where he had that like punt that went much further than the OSU returner expected, and then he like dropped it.
Yeah, and if we had recovered
it, blasted at the 2-yard line or whatever,
yeah.
like that pinned them back, and then Nico had the return, so we started that drive at the 40, and then we score. So like we really got there because of special teams, and we didn't really we didn't drive the field. It wasn't like our offense, like it wasn't like that drive that we had against Arizona State where we just like ran it down their throat and like all of a sudden it was like, oh hey, offense is here. Yeah.
There was none of that. There was no. Yeah, but we'll dive into it. You want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, my first point is about the defense actually, and I think it's particularly I understand why Wilcox. I mean, he obviously can't come into these press conferences and just be like, "Yeah, our offense is a problem, and our defense plays great, and we obviously have a problem on offense." I mean, I think he could do more of it than he does, but he's a guy that's going to hold the entire team accountable. And to be fair, there's bones to be picked with the defense here, and it's on third down. Yeah. They allow, like, this is a consistent theme at this point where we will get teams in third and long, and we will give it up. And it happened on every single drive. Every single drive they scored the touchdown on, we had multiple opportunities. I think it was 7 third downs that came up on those 3 drives that we allowed them to convert on.
And those are the 3 drives he's talking about.
Yeah.
Like in the press conference where he's upset.
And they're like, I mean, I relaxed when the defense relaxed. It was like 3rd and 10, and the defense just went into coverage, and they ran the whatever it was, delay or handoff, and they got 15. That was the biggest play of the game. And I relaxed. I was like, oh, I think we got this. Like, I didn't see them going down and converting on a 3rd and long. And sure enough, they run the ball, and we weren't even close on that play. And props to Jonathan Smith for calling a run there. Like, that was, we just said it. You just said, like, we got out-coached. And so I think the defense is, as phenomenal as this defense is, there's a consistent theme of us. We can't, on the long drives, we struggle to get off the field on third down. It's not like we give up. It's because we're a really good defense. I mean, it's not like we're giving up these, like, big, easy scores or anything. We make people work for it, but the worst part is, like, we can put them in third and long, and then the defense ends up kind of, like, for whatever reason, not converting. And I don't know if it's because like we're missing Kanasic, or we're missing that second line. Like if it's, I don't know if it's a read or what it is, but we got out schemed on a couple plays. It was pretty obvious, and I just like, part of me was like, wow, that's cool to watch an actual functional offense scheme against a defense. Like we haven't seen that in 3 years, which is ridiculous. And then part of me saying like, I think our defense should be better.
Yeah, just to answer, like to talk about your point, I think it goes both ways here, in my opinion, right? The offense has to score more to give the defense some leeway. At the same time, when you know your offense is struggling and the offense gets you a lead by scoring, you need to clamp down hard because you know those points are going to be hard to come by. And it kind of just, it went in that scenario, and then it went into the bad option version of it rather than the good option, where they did enough to get the stop and they scored just enough, to win. And that was just one of the things. So off of that point, mine's more of a point of like the longer term for the rest of the season on it, but it's more of a question format. So how long before the defense just starts to give up? Like how long before subconsciously you keep taking the hits defensively and you just subconsciously don't believe that the other side of the ball is going to produce enough points for you to be able to win, no matter how well you play defensively, right? So, like, Coach in his press conference just today was like, someone asked about the similarities between last year and this year, and he said something like, from a narrative point, I get why you guys want to ask that, but like last year's team is not this year's team is not last year's team. Like it's a brand new year, like it's a brand new team, it's different opponents, all that good stuff. But I have to slightly disagree with that, just because of sports goes both ways psychologically. Like the greatest example for me is my beloved soccer team, Manchester United Football Club, right? In the 90s and the 2000s under Sir Alex Ferguson, what were they known for? They were known for beating you in the last minute. No matter who was on the team, when Sir Alex Ferguson was the head coach, you played at Old Trafford and you were up 1-0, you were always afraid that United were going to come back and score in the final waning minutes and either get that point or score two quick ones and win the game. And it was a general fear of any team heading into that. Different teams every year. But that's the kind of the tone that they set. The opposite end of the spectrum of that would be this, where Evan Weaver talked about it after the ASU loss, right? Where he was upset and he's like, we're not gonna just fold here. Like we're gonna change it. But then it didn't. We go into a 3-game loss, and then I don't know if you saw, because you weren't there, but I don't know if you saw Evan Weaver's post-game press conference. He was deflated. There was no fire in his answers. It was just like we lost. I've never seen Weaver answer those types of questions like that after a loss. And you have to look at it now with only 5 games remaining. Like, you have to kind of be like, here we go again. Like, from Weaver's perspective, or if you're a defensive player, like, it's out of your hands, really. Right? You can play as well as you can, but if the offense doesn't score any points for you, you're going to lose. Like you can give up a field goal all game, but if your offense doesn't score a single point, you lose the game. And so this point actually came somewhat from Avi too, when we were eating after the game, and he was talking about this, and I was like, that's a really good point, because it's a psychological, it's a mental game. All sports are, and especially when you're dealing with non-professional kids, right? Or non-professional players. Like, you're going to have the fluctuating, like, sports psychology a lot more than you'd have for, like a Tom Brady who's in his 40s and has been there and done that, right? Like, it's a lot more cool, calm. They talk about cool, calm, collected all the time, but the amount of experience you have in this level of athletics is so few for most of these guys.
Yeah.
So,
I think in particular, I I would somewhat agree with it. I think that I could see them. I think you could make the case that we're already start to see. We're already starting to see some of this play out. I think that the defense puts additional pressure on itself, and there's just mental mistakes that are probably happening because they feel like we have to win the game. How many times has Wilcox asked this defense to win the football game if you go back to last season? Many, many times. We forego offense to put the defense back on the field because we know that's our best unit. But we've asked them to kind of carry that ship. And so, yes, do I think that it could have an impact on them putting pressure on themselves? For sure. Do I see this team giving up on Coach Wilcox, in which they're so bought in? Nah.
I don't think
so.
I don't think they'll proactively give up on themselves, and you'll see it in the body language. I think it's just more of those small mental things, like in the middle of the game when you're not even really thinking of your own thoughts, you're not in control. Your mind just kind of is in that autopilot mode as you're in such a fast going,
runner's high.
Yeah. And you're in that moment and you're just crap, here. Oh no, not again, and it's one or two of those mental lapses is all you need for an 11-man team to crumble. One guy just thinks that, right? And it happens.
Yeah, I think you would see it where maybe in the Utah game, there's an early score that happens, and maybe the team is just there goes the ball game, right? Mm-hmm. 7 points, we're not getting 7 points, something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have a hard time kind of seeing it. I would be shocked. I wouldn't be totally shocked if we're throw a total dud out there this week. But I would be surprised if you saw that consistently throughout the rest of the year. I think this next game is a pretty tough one. But then the rest of the season, you basically have some pretty winnable games. Although SC is playing good football. But yeah, I mean, I could totally understand if the defense sort of got into that mindset. Would not be surprising because we all get into that mindset. We were in that mindset, Rob, against Washington. Not to throw you under the bus.
Oh, I was.
You text me we lost, right?
Yeah.
When they scored.
When they scored the field goal,
yeah.
And we needed to come back to score.
We lost.
That
was week 2.
Yeah.
So we were already there in week 2. I mean, it's mid-October now. I mean, that's a hell of if we were that down on the offense at that point in the year. Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a much bigger conversation because then you start to go into, all right, well, now you've had this for more than a year, right? You've had this experience and you've had arguably a good amount of data and possibly talk about making the change at O coordinator, and I think you could kind of expand on this quite a bit. It's all just really bad. There's just it's all just really bad.
All right, your next point.
All right, so sticking with the theme of the game, I really think that the frustrating part of that game for me was the fact that we did move the ball at times. It wasn't we outgained. I think we still might have outgained Oregon State in the game, or it was pretty close. And when I was leaving, we were outgaining them, and it was really the sacks. So whether it was the O-line, that pocket, my goodness, it was one of the worst pockets I think I've ever seen in the history of me watching college football. It was, even when there was time, the pocket was tiny. It wasn't there was space to move in. It was this tiny little pocket where you had a foot to your left, foot to your right, foot in front of you, foot behind you. And you had to sit in it, and you got one read, and you got to throw. And I understand Monster's inaccurate, and I understand on some balls, but he also isn't making mistakes. He's not throwing picks. There's not he's getting lucky by nearly throwing interceptions and not doing it. He's been a pretty relatively good game manager for what we've needed. It's just he misses some throws, and when the offense is pressing, the spotlight seems to highlight it more. And so what frustrated me the most was we get the ball to the 12 and then we go back and we just have negative plays. 53% of our total plays were no gain or negative. That's absurd. I've never I mean, God, so frustrating. I'm still not past anger. Like I'm still.
You're fluctuating back and forth
like,
between
I'm
everything.
Still like
multiple personality disorder here.
yeah, like, it frustrates me so much.
Here, I mean,
so we get in the field goal range. Then we go right back. We're like, nah, we don't want it.
Nope.
And then we go. All right, we get the ball to 12, and then we're like, no. We'll actually take the ball at the 30 and try and kick a 48-yard field goal, and then we'll miss it off the upright. And we're just like getting into territory, and then back. First drive of the game, drive down the field, 3 and out or 4, whatever on the.
It's like a 5
4 and out.
Yeah, 4 and out
on the stupid inside runs that everyone in the world knows that they're gonna run, and we keep doing it, and like. Let's try it again. Like, no, like, dude, it's like the person at the table. It's like, roll it again. Like, dude, no, you've lost like 80 times in a row. Like, just stop. Just step away from the roulette table. Take a break.
At least at the roulette table, like, you have a chance at winning money. Like, this is like, there's no winning here. Like, you get, let's say, a 5 or 10 yard run, right, out of one of those, like on the 9th one that you did. Is that a win? No, because you've been stuffed all the times before. I mean, here's the offensive stats, right, that I didn't read. We had 20 first downs. They had 18. We had 107 yards on the run. On the ground, they had 108. It was pretty much neck and neck. We had 175 yards passing. They had 174. Total yards of offense, 282 both ways.
Yeah. You shouldn't get the ball at 12, and then Cal should not be getting the ball to the 12 against Oregon State and then end up kicking a mid 45 to 48 or what was it, like something like that yard field goal.
And also to the 120th defense in the country.
Right. I mean, that is fundamentally like absurd to me that it was just like we would get in there and then it was just negative play. And we're like, so like to me, this game had this odd sense where we should have been ahead. Even though we were losing, like I still always felt like we should have had a bigger lead than what we did. And in a lot of ways, this was like the worst case scenario of like North Texas combined with Davis, combined with, like all of these silly games we
ASU.
played this year. Yeah.
It's all 3 games combined.
And experienced all of it in one, which was just miserable. So yeah, I think to me, what this is it's coaching. Herm Edwards was on HBO, and I watched this Arizona State special, and he said that college football is one of the weirdest, and football in general is one of the weirdest things because you spend far more time practicing the game than actually playing it. You have, in the NFL OTAs, you have fall camp, then you go and you have practice every day, and then you play the game on Sunday for 3 hours, right? But you spend all the rest of the time practicing, and you win the game in practice. And I thought that was really interesting. He's like, the outcome of the game is determined by your ability, like how well you do in practice. And to me, that's why I point to this and just say, like, it's coaching. We had all the time to practice for this game in the world. And then, we saw the outcome. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that.
The biggest thing for me, too, is like the coaches, at least this staff, preaches that they want to put their players in the best position to succeed. The best possible position to succeed. Defensively, yes. Yeah, you're doing that. You're calling the right plays. Like, you're doing everything you can to put in those guys in a position to make the tackle, to make the play, to do all that. Offensively, it's the exact opposite. You're not putting any of these guys in a position to win or succeed on a single play for that matter. And that's where it's like it just doesn't add up to me. It just doesn't.
And yeah.
All right. You want my next point?
Sure.
This one's on the offense. 7 games in. 7 games already. We're already more than halfway through the season. And the offense has no identity. Zero. The offense has zero identity. And the exact sentence I wrote is, we lost everything in our offense just trying to add explosive plays. Remember how that was the big thing going into this year, is that they wanted to add more explosive plays, and they put that an emphasis in that? With that, we lost everything else. You see the explosive plays. Like Monster's touchdown drive, that deep out to Nico, perfectly thrown. And then that inside shoulder lead in to Jordan. Great throw. But both explosive plays. But we can't win the single, like the 3-yard run. Or like the single, like if we're like 3rd and 4. Like we can't seem to get like a hitch route or a quick slant. Like we can't seem to get the small ones that we need.
You know what's particularly fascinating about that point? It's actually an amazing point. Is that the two things? What were the two things they highlighted in fall camp?
Explosive plays
and
turnovers.
So what did we do this game?
None of those.
Well, no, we did have some explosive plays. And
no.
Turnovers.
Okay, yeah. I'm saying I was talking about the opposite.
So we're actually executing on what. So I think like the whole plan was probably flawed to begin with, to focus on those two things, because the guys are doing a pretty good job of not turning the ball over. And Chris Brown had a couple of plays that would be defined as explosive runs, and you mentioned the throws, Monsters, long runs. Like there were, it wasn't like we had no explosive identity, but yeah, we have. There's nothing, man. We don't have any level. We're not a running team. We had that at the beginning of the year. People would be like, "Oh, we got the Brute Thunder and Lightning, Chris Brown Jr. and Marcel Dancy." Like, nope, those guys aren't going anywhere.
Look at it this way: if you take away touchdowns from last year and this year, right? This year's team is the exact opposite of last year's team. Right? Last year's team was great in getting like the 3-yard, the 4-yard little runs. Mm-hmm. And they just cannot get the big ones when they need it, and the defense clamped down on them. This year's the exact opposite. We get the big chunk yards, and then when we need the small ones, we just can't seem to do it. And we don't turn the ball over, and we turned the ball over like crazy last year. It's the exact opposite of what we're doing. Like you talked about Monster being the game manager, right? Am I crazy to think that Monster and how he played so far this year, right, is the player we wanted Garbers to be last year?
Just the game manager.
Yeah.
That could run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we wanted. That didn't turn the ball over.
Or McElwain.
Or either one of those. But that's the image of what we wanted from our quarterback like halfway through last year, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And I think it's an amazing point. We are, and so that's the crux of this. So not to like keep going back to this, and this is fundamentally what I wonder in my head: are we asking too much? Like the Dykes era, which people just seem to want to talk about. So let's open that can open.
Oh boy,
so the Dykes era.
I do have a point on that one.
All we wanted to do was just get a defense that was like top 60.
Not even
top 80.
Yeah.
To go with that offense. And then we're like, oh, that's all we need. All we needed was Art Kaufman to just like run your defense, just get us to this. And now here we are. And what I will say is let's build the identity of Wisconsin. Like if we want to be Wisconsin of the West, or if we want to be Michigan State of the West, let's go out and recruit brawlers on the O-line. Let's go and get these Chris Streets and Chris Brown Jr. running backs that are super talented, and then let's do it. Like, who cares about the quarterback? Like, just get the big guys up front and be like, we are going to run the ball all night, right? And then that's us. We're cow football. We play mean-ass defense, and we run the ball down your throat. Try and stop us. If you do, good for you. Great. But we have that identity. But, like, yeah, I agree. Our identity right now is, like, we do nothing well on offense, and we're pretty good on defense. I mean, like, defense identity is great. I have nothing wrong there. But offense is, I don't know. Like,
so Stanford. You want to be Stanford.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ridiculous of me to think that Stanford could do this, and we can't for some reason.
No, it's boring football. Like, let's get that out of the way. It's boring football, but it's effective football.
But we like watching defense. Arguably more than I like watching the Dykes offense.
Right.
If you were telling me that we were going 8-4 every year, like that's all where I'm asking for is 8-4 every year with
like a stars aligned every like 5 or 6 years where we like went in 9 or 10 games, right?
I'm sure I'd want that when it got there, but like for Andy right now, well, we
8-4
lost
every year.
Oregon State, like 8-4 every year, and then an axe, and then the guys up front that are like going to the NFL, and and then we get the running backs, so that the program can get recognition for guys, so that like people can see, our running backs, our era of running backs are no longer in the NFL, for people to really look at and be like, that's where I want to go. And now they've gone to Stanford.
That's the thing.
Bryce Love and Christian McCaffrey, and they have.
Stanford is now the powerhouse school for the kids that are in high school. I mean, over the last 10 years, like let's look at it, right? Like an 18-year-old kid 10 years ago is 8, right? His formative years of him watching football, who was the powerhouse football school?
Oh, without a doubt.
Stanford. I hate to admit it, but it's the truth.
Without a doubt.
Here's my, I don't know if that was a point, but here's my little addendum to that. All right. Over a 6-year span, and I'm actually curious to what people think, and I'm curious to know what you think, but over the last 6 years, Cal has arguably wasted its best offense and its best defense it's seen in years. You agree with that?
Yeah. Probably more specifically like...
Because I'm thinking the 2015 Goff year, right? And that godly offense is arguably one of the best offenses we've seen in quite a while.
I never liked that offense that much. I actually think I would say that some of the Tedford offenses, like the Rodgers offenses, were better. I really had a hard time with the offense because we just got shut down. And
sometimes,
so it's like never, Goff is like elite, but then like the wide receivers haven't done as well at the next level. I think.
No, but they did enough in college. Like that I'm just that's all I'm basing it off of. Like that offense put up points whenever they wanted to and whenever they needed to, barring one or two games.
They couldn't score at will. Like
against
I think
Utah,
it's revisionist history of like for us when we were like they were defensible. Like you could scheme up a game plan against that. It wasn't like every team we took out and scored 35 and they just like had to score more than 35 on us. I felt like I felt like it was more like when we would play like SC or when we would go in and play Stanford, like we would get held under, we wouldn't be able to score at will as much. But anyways, yes, I mean, we've wasted, you're talking about the number 1 overall pick, and I think Evan Weaver is going to be that person at the next level. People are like, what in the world? Like, how did you not win more in college?
Yep. But yeah, that's my point. What do you got?
All right. I thought Oregon State was like a perfect example of the offense that we like wanted to see and we need and could have and just don't.
You're talking about the Oregon State offense. Like that's the type of offense we would want.
Schemes, the play calls, like what they were doing. I think. I mean, it's not like whatever Luton is.
He's been there for like 8 years.
Yeah, he's like 5th-year senior. I don't think he was particularly special. But I loved their play calls. Their play calls were inventive and exciting, and it was kind of catered to the personnel. And I think I'm going to burn another point, but I think like what we don't do well is like we scheme to scheme. Like we scheme to what we know, but we don't scheme to what we have. And so like we run plays as if our entire offensive line is fully healthy. Mm-hmm. We run plays as if like our quarterback is, Chase Garbers when it's Devon Modster. We don't seem to adapt to like the actual personnel, and Oregon State does look like they did a really good job of doing that. And even the way they spelled their 2 running backs, I thought that was really good too. So it was like one of those glaring examples that you don't always see because our defense is so good. We don't really have the opportunity to kind of look at an offense and be like admire it. But I found myself admiring Jonathan Smith's offense.
Well, that makes perfect sense because, I mean, the whole mentality of the staff and what they always say when someone gets hurt is next man up, right? And if you're blinded by your own household motto, which is next man up, you're expecting the talent drop off to not be there and the skill sets to be similar across the board. And you're hoping that the next guy up can emulate who he's replacing, right? Or bring somewhat of that skill set or whatever to every position, which is not the case. And the better coordinators in the league, in the conference, in college football, in the NFL, like heck, all of sports basically. If you're if you're a coach, like you coach the skill sets that everyone has, and we're not seeing that whatsoever.
No, I mean, I think that is easily what you see at the next level is like, or even when you look across at other programs that have to replace at important positions. It just sort of, I've never seen, and like, I think you can make a very clear argument here now because we've seen Bowers, we've seen Garbers, we've seen Modster, and, you know, we also can even look at like somebody like Patrick Laird, and you've seen these guys like of all different like star, you know, recruiting stars or what Monster, you even have UCLA tape, and they all look equally lost. They look lost in the RPO. They look slow to make their read progressions. They always seem to like default to like running out of the pocket, and they don't make any mistakes. So you know, they don't make very many mistakes, and it just seems like there's a theme. So either the playbook is unnecessarily complicated, as we've said this before. It's the second time we've said this, or it's just horribly like misguided.
Yeah, the drop off for Baldwin's offense from where he was at Eastern Washington to now is insane, and if you have to account for the uptick in the athletes you're playing, the competition that you're playing against, but there has to be some carryover. There's been zero carryover whatsoever, and we'll talk about Baldwin in a little bit because that's a big question that everyone wants to talk about and the topic of on everyone's mind. But I think we can talk about that later. All right, turning back to the defense. Here's a point of mine: the one exploitable part of our defense is in the middle of the field, but at the same time, we're playing a lot more soft coverage, and that could be a defensive game plan based on the offensive struggles. We can't take more risks on defense with either our blitzing or our aggressive pressing because we can't give up the big play and force our offense to come back and score. Like we're doing that. We're doing those good Tedford teams where we like, yeah, keep possession, you know, for you, and then we'll get a stop. But like we're not gonna clamp down on you like real quick right away, just because, like, I mean Tedford didn't do this, but I'm just saying with this team, it's can't put your offense back on there and expect them to score another point. So don't give up the big play, which is exactly what they're doing. And that's my thing of like everyone saying like, oh, the Takers suck this year. Like, you know, they're not as good as they were last year. Sure, if you're going off of like the stats of like interceptions, sure. But if your interceptions is your only stat, like we revert back to this every time. The 2015 Cal team with Goff was number 2 in the country in interceptions at one point. Like that was halfway through the season. Like the interception stat is like, it's such a bizarre one because it's a reactionary stat. If the quarterback doesn't throw the ball to the defensive backs can't intercept the ball. Like it doesn't work that way.
Giving up 18.7 points per game. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's way more important to me than how many interceptions. And I think what you said is spot on. Like if we're playing, we can't play in a super aggressive style of defense, and we want the guys to make the tackles. You'll notice they're going for the tackle over trying to punch the ball out because we can't give up those long drives. So we need to get them 3 and out. Like that's what we need to do. And so we keep the play in front of us. We don't go for a play where we might miss the tackle but could punch the ball out because we can't give up the big play. And we don't. We're super good at it. I mean, the defense is ridiculous.
And I think the reason they funnel everything to the middle of the field is because everyone else can collapse on it, right? The safeties can come crashing down, the cornerbacks can come crashing down, and then you got Weaver and Coyne chasing them from behind. So I think the defensive staff understands, hey, if they can throw here all day, let's let them throw all day there because we know we have guys that can make the tackle at that spot. But if we if we shift our defense, like let's say to the left, and it's one guy on an island on the right side and he gets burned, we have no cover, and that's going to result in like a 25-yard long pass play, and most college teams now go tempo after that, and we're not gonna be able to recover. as good as our defense is. So, yeah, that's the one thing I have about our defense. That's the one exploitable spot that's been there over the last couple of weeks, and some teams have exploited it. But at the same time, it's like I can't blame the defense if you can't cover everything for eternity. You're gonna have to give up something at some point. And so that also comes down to the pass rush, but that's another topic.
I think the takers have been as advertised. Hodgins, sorry.
He's good.
Cam Bynum on that one touchdown, and then the other touchdown they had, the referee beat Evan Weaver.
Yep. Yeah. The ref was basically a wall between Evan Weaver and the player.
It's ridiculous.
You saw Weaver get up, and he wasn't even pissed. He was just like,
Yeah.
what can you do? Like,
Yeah.
and the ref's just in the lane.
So let's talk about O-line.
All right.
So here's my thought on the O-line. Obviously, losing our center
Yeah.
was devastating. Devastating, because we looked semi-competent on the first drive of Oregon, or like one of the first drives of Oregon, right?
We looked
When he was still in the
competent in
game.
Oregon until we lost Saffel.
Yeah. And then we lost Saffel, and it was like downhill.
Yeah.
So that was pretty devastating. The only reason, though, that I'm giving Greatwood a pass here and would be open to like keeping Greatwood on staff is because I guess that sounded more aggressive than I intended.
Yeah.
But is because he's good at recruiting. He's done a really good job of recruiting and of getting big bodies in. I cannot tell you why our line is this bad, though. This is year 3. Like, we had 3 years to recruit. I mean, I guess it's kind of like 2, but like we had enough time to like have depth at these positions and be okay. And I know I threw this out there earlier, so it'd be fun to hear your take. The Niners have lost 3 linemen this season. They haven't replaced through free agency, and they look far more competent. Obviously, it's the next level. It's Kyle Shanahan, offensive-minded coach, but those injuries happen. It's not like, I mean, yes, we have had a high injury thing, but I just hate blaming it on injuries. Like, we shouldn't look that bad against a front of Oregon State that has done nothing to everyone.
Yeah, you're right. I think so. For me, like when we have this discussion on Twitter about the Niners thing, it's sure, like they had guys. I would like to go. I haven't looked at the roster for the Niners. I'd love to go back and look at the guys that are being replaced. Like, how many years of experience have they had in the league? Like, are they guys that have been journeyman guys, or have they been with the Niners for over two or 3 years? Like, have they been the backups in Shanahan's system over the last couple of years? Because if that's the case, that makes a lot more sense that there's less of a drop off there than
Sure, but if you were going to
think.
lose one who is the most devastating O-lineman for the Niners to lose?
Oh, Staley,
right?
No
And
question.
They lost him.
Yeah,
and that's like what I look at for us. Like, we lost Will Craig. Who knows how Gentle Williams would have been, but even just having Gentle Williams would have been better than what we have right now. I can't tell if it's like Saffel was really good at calling out coverage or blitzes, or like what the deal
alignments,
is.
the line adjustments and the line shifts he called out. But the thing is, the moment he went down, you saw in the Oregon game and a bit in the Oregon State game, like there are times where they're not adjusting, and you saw like a couple of times when Monster got sacked, like he's just a free rusher, just
great
from into the
second
gap
and a half in.
Yeah, you just see it. So yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it goes. There's 2 ways to go about that too, right? I mean, you also have for the Niners case, you have a head coach who's arguably one of the best offensive coaches and offensive minds in the league, if not all of football, and he can probably adjust to that a lot more, like relatively speaking, versus what Baldwin and Greatwood is trying to do here. But yeah, I think I'd love to go and look at that roster stuff too, because if the backup guys are guys that have been in the league for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, There's a lot more experience there versus us, where we're trying to throw on McCade Mettauer, who's a true freshman, like into the Oregon game and asking him to like pass pro perfectly. Like it's not gonna work, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questions and zero answers.
Yeah,
and I feel like I say that line every week. Every week.
No, this is definitely the most like I cannot look at a game on our schedule and tell you like normally I'm like super optimistic. And I think this has been the internal battle for me. I'm like, okay, like yeah, whatever, we lost. Like it's ASU. It's like, all right, we lost, but like we're gonna do this, and that.
No.
And now I can't look at a single game on the schedule and tell you
we'll win,
that we can win, or that I can't even make a definitive case that I would like. Definitely not the Utah game. And then it's like Washington State. Yeah, I think we can shut down their offense. It's at home, but like even then I'm like, nah, but like we still can't score. So like, damn it. And then like if you can't score points, you cannot even convince yourself you are capable of winning football games.
If you can only score 17 points against Oregon State, and let's say that's the average for the rest of the year, right? We can only score 17 points. We're not winning the rest of the season. There's no way we're winning the rest of the season. Okay, I should take that back. There's like a 1% chance way of winning where like the defense like pitches a shutout, right?
Yeah,
or like under 10 points and we somehow score 17 and we win.
We could beat Washington State.
Right, but on average, just based on how many points those other teams that we're playing against score against, you know, their competition, like 17 points isn't going to cut it. Not in college football.
Dude,
not in the Pac-12.
We 19.9 points per game is just.
Do you see my reply to your tweet?
I honestly think that there's a case to be made that, like, if Washington State's going to let go of their D coordinator, you could make the case that we should let go of our O coordinator. It's that bad. Like, statistically, I'm not arguing this for the sake. I don't think it'd be good for the program, but statistically, based on how bad we are performing, and you add in the historical data, it's hard not to see why this program like Washington State makes that move, and like why Cal isn't considering doing something different.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want you to hold that point because I have 2 more points. But so my two last points. One's like a kind of a retelling of what I just said, but this is my line. There's a 0% chance that this offense will be better. There is a 100% chance this offense will be worse for the rest of the year.
Wow,
I fully believe it.
You don't think there's any way this offense improves?
Mm-mm.
So then we win 0 games.
I mean, as I said, there's that 1% chance of like, you know, where we score 17 and they score 10.
So we're going 4-8 this year.
Yeah.
Bah!
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
Just stabbed me in the heart.
Yeah. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Dude, 4-8 is so confusing.
All right. And the last point is judging by what Coach Wilcox said today in his presser, which was that they had no update on Monster and that he was day to day. And in the injury report, I believe it says he's week to week, and we didn't see it, but apparently on the broadcast, it showed him when he was going down, his head like whiplashed. And then they said it looks like he's being treated for a concussion. So if it is a concussion, the concussion protocol is very weird. Like, he could be ready to go tomorrow, but he could also not be ready to go for like 2 weeks.
Months.
So it's a test that they do every day to see if he's past his symptoms and if he's like totally clear. If he's not, then like, you know, he can't even practice. So if he can't practice, let's say he didn't practice today, which is most likely, right? If he can't practice tomorrow, which is Tuesday practices are arguably like one of the most important ones because you're installing the game menu for Saturday.
Yep.
So if he's unable to go tomorrow, then I would put his likelihood at playing at close to 0%, which means Spencer Brash is going to get his first start as a Cal Bear at Rice-Eccles Stadium in Salt Lake City against the Utah Running Utes.
Dude, whatever. At least it's different.
That's like, but that's tough. Like, that's a tough ask to ask a true freshman for your first game to be in that stadium. Lord, in that atmosphere. But here's the other part of that, is that apparently Utah's starting quarterback is potentially hurt, and he's, you know, questionable. Which means, and I watched Whittingham's presser today, and he said if Tyler's unable to go, he said it'd be a competition this week between Shelley and Fisk. Fisk is the guy that actually came in and spelled Huntley in Utah's game this past week against ASU. So, or I think Shelley did play a little bit too, but Fisk threw the ball a couple times. So if Fisk wins that competition, like that's the matchup, right? That's the matchup that all Cal fans and Utah fans were rooting for since the beginning of the year. You go into week 8, and the quarterback matchup is Spencer Brash versus Fisk. Or Lisk. Is it Lisk or Fisk? One or the other. But yeah, that's insane to think about. You know, I don't know if Avi's listening to this, but Avi, when we were eating dinner, said he's actually optimistic about the Utah game. I don't know what's wrong with that man.
He's been so good at predicting games. I can't not agree with them, but then I can't give you any substantiated reason why you should be optimistic for that game. I honestly think the only way that your theory gets disproven of 100% chance that our offense only gets worse is if Spencer Brash comes in and shows something special that we just didn't see. And the one thing that I keep thinking in my mind is like Regal talking about that zip that he throws the ball with and how excited the coaching staff was about, like, you know, how he throws the ball. And, you know, maybe that's it. We get lucky where we get a backup that comes in. And
here's my thing. You want my 2-minute scouting report on Brash and what I saw in the fall camp?
Yes, but let me tell you real fast.
Go for it.
If we've seen Bowers and Garbers and Modster, Albert Einstein would punch me in the face and be like, you are literally watching the same thing over and over and over again and doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
So you're an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so here's my 2-minute thing on Spencer Brash that I saw in fall camp. The dude has a live arm. He's 6'4". He's I think our tallest quarterback. So he definitely has more prototypical size that you want. He's not a scrambler. He's more of a pocket passer. But he does have some athleticism. Like, you watch his high school tape, and you do see him run out of the pocket a little bit and be a little elusive. But he's not the type of guy that just takes off. He's not Modster or Garbers in that regard. The thing with him was that when he was making throws, I don't know whether they were working with him and, like, you know, with his throwing motion or whatnot. But at least during fall camp, his throws were high. All of his throws, like, overshot his wide receiver. And maybe judging by that, I think it might have been a footwork thing. But if that's what they were working on in fall camp 2 months ago, and if that's what they were adjusting then, there's no way that he's ready, like, and fully adjusted all that stuff to now. Because, you know, we just talked to Kevin Riley about the whole for QB1 versus QB2 thing, right? About the snaps. Outside of fall camp, like, Garbers was the one, right? With QB1. So he took 80% of the snaps.
Brash is getting scout team, though.
Brash was getting scout team. But that you're not running. If you're in scout team, you're not running our offense.
Well, no. So he would be running
the opponents.
Yeah, he'd be running the opponent's offense against our defense.
So
all those people that always talk about, our quarterbacks must be good because they play our defense. Well, maybe we'll see it from Brash.
Yeah, but he did have a really nice arm. He when he throws, he doesn't heave his entire body into throws. It's it feels very quick and very loose. And you saw, I don't know, you didn't get to see it, but some people saw that, you know, when he came on, and you saw it in those 2 drives, and his first pass was just perfectly, like, calm, cool, collected, just over the middle, you know, a solid gain. So he does have that arm. The question is, can he do that against a Utah team that pretty much runs the same type of defense that we do, with multiple looks and disguises? And man, to be thrust as a true freshman quarterback in the middle of the season with 0 preparation and 1 week of prep, and to, like, go through all that game tape of one, like, that type of opponent too, not even like just a lower tier opponent. Like, if he had that type of prep going into the Oregon State game, I'd say he had probably a better chance. But whew, like that means he's only been getting the number 2 quarterback snaps for what, the last 2 weeks
since after ASU.
Yeah. So 3 weeks, I guess 3 weeks, because you have the bye week and then that. So we'll see if he's playing on Saturday. It's trial by fire. I mean, remember what we said about Chase last year? Is that like we were talking about it over the postseason. We were like, we broke him. Remember how we were saying that?
We break everybody.
Yeah.
California football, the breakers of quarterbacks.
Six different quarterbacks
We're the takers and the breakers. We're just crushing it with the hashtags today.
6 different quarterbacks has taken snaps for Cal in a game since the beginning of last season. 6. Incredible. I believe it's 7 if you consider Garber's 2017 and Garber's 2018 to be 2 different people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
Question time?
It's question time. Let me pull it up on the tweeters. Before we get to question time, I don't know if he'll ever listen to this, but congratulations to Jaylen Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, 110 million, 4 years. Granted, I think it's like 104 with like 8 millions in very, very like crazy incentives, which it said like he probably won't ever get to, but whew, that's money. Secure the bag, my friend. Secure the bag.
Is there a Jaylen Brown practice facility being built somewhere?
No, maybe Jaylen Brown locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want Jaylen, like, the long-term goal for me was always Jaylen signed by Adidas. So Jaylen gets his own signature shoe with Adidas. And then we cut our ties with Under Armour. We flip to Adidas. Like, that's the thing with Arizona State, right? They get all those cool colorways and the Hardens because of Harden, and that's awesome. That's so cool to see. All right. Got some questions for you. I think the big question that everyone wants asked is, of course, about Baldwin, but I think we can use that as like the last thing. So I'm just going to skip all the Baldwin ones and just talk about the ones that don't have to do with them. So first one, in the next 2 years, will we ever see a top 15 Cal football team? I just want it to be a reality as soon. I can answer that for him. We just did this year.
Yeah.
You literally just saw a top 15 Cal football team.
This is that team. It might not look like it now, but we were in the top 15.
We were. I mean, do you have a realistic answer to that?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of the fun answer. Look, it's a way easier problem to solve, in my mind, solving for offense than it is solving for defense. We've taken care of the hard part, and now it's just a matter of 100% getting whatever it takes to get the offensive ball to be top 60. And wow, damn it, I'm falling in my own traps. It shouldn't be that hard. It's been hard for Dykes to do it for defense. I think it's easier to get a more. I think it's just a little bit easier to get the personnel on offense that you need to be successful. So I could see it being top 10. I mean, especially if you look how good we are with our out of conference schedule so far under Wilcox. It's not going to be too different in next year where we kind of go in, and I easily could see us.
Next year's tougher too, by the way, out of conference schedule, in my opinion.
Is it? Why?
You've got UNLV and TCU.
No. UNLV and TCU? I could easily see us going 5-0 again and getting the top 10. I could talk myself into that, no problem.
Well, we also don't know what the Pac-12 schedule is,
right,
for that year. So, but this is asked because the addendum to that is that I just want that to be a reality as a student with crying tears. And I looked at his profile. And he's Cal 22. So he's got 2 years. He's a sophomore, so he's got 2 years left of being a Cal student. He's like,
consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, there's like 8 years before you of guys that didn't that witnessed no good success other than that one Goff year.
Yep.
I mean,
if you were 2012 to 2016, you had a pretty rough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a pretty rough time.
Yeah, you did. So, yeah, that's your question answered. We'll go to the next one. What gives you hope for the rest of the season? What I can answer that, at least the first part, and I'll toss to you. What gives me hope for the rest of the season? It's Thanksgiving. It's Christmas.
Oh my god! All right. I can give you some hope. Stanford is absolutely terrible, and they're as hurt as we are. So there's a
if not more hurt
shot to win the big game. So if there's anything to kind of peg your hopes on, it's going to the farm, having a blast, and beating Stanford at home because none of their fans will be there. So that to me, and UCLA is also not very good. Like, we could easily go to a bowl game. Like, UCLA is not good. Stanford's not good. We win those 2 games. We go back to the Cheez-It Bowl. We have a ton of fun. We throw 6 interceptions again, and we relive what we thought would be impossible. So peg your hopes on that and eat a bunch of Cheez-Its.
Why?
Order the Pizza Hut Cheez-It thing.
I had a friend who actually ordered that and said he would never do it ever again. So I'm going to take his advice. I'm going to take his advice and never order that ever. Oh, boy. All right, we got another one. Needing 2 wins in our last 5 games, who do you see as the opponents we have the best chances to get those W's?
I just gave my 2. Stanford, UCLA. I think Washington State's I think that's a really winnable game too. I mean, I do think like our defense will shut down that offense, and Washington State's just all over the place. Like, you get them at home. If it was on the road, I wouldn't feel that way. We get Washington State at home; they're a mess. Mike Leach is banned from using his Twitter account. Like, that's a winnable game against an offense that we scheme really well against. So,
yeah, for me, I don't know. We're so bad against dual threat quarterbacks. Like, I don't think we have the athleticism to keep up with a guy that scrambles that well. So that's the big thing against playing like a guy like DTR. And in the Rose Bowl too, we have horrors of when we play at the Rose Bowl. So, but then we've also played better on the road than we have at home this year. Yeah. So that's why it's so hard to like pick. There's no like easy answer here, but I'm just going to go with Washington State. And you know what? No, I flipped that. I think we might end up losing to Washington State. I'm going to say we beat SC at home to end the year, and then we beat Stanford. But we lose to UCLA and Washington State. Or those are more toss-ups. I think those are if I had to pick 2 games to win, those would be the 2.
SC and
Stanford. Oh. All right. Our dear friend Josh asks us, evaluate the defense as a whole.
I think we did some of this already, so I don't want to spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
But I think the defense has been really good, and right at expectation, with maybe some desire for more havoc from the defensive line. But other than that, they've played really well. We should win these games a lot of games with this defense. So I don't really have any complaints.
I don't either. I think the big thing for here is that if you're looking at it just from a statistical standpoint, like points per game, like we're way better. But, for takeaways like forced fumbles or interceptions, like we're down from last year. So if that's your gauge, then sure, we're not as good. But everything else points to that we're on par or if not better. All right. Nick Krantz, our Monday columnist, is my screw it, throw deep game plan so crazy it might work or just crazy?
So crazy it might work. I absolutely love it. It was spot on. I mean, we saw this against, I think it was North Texas too,
yep,
where Chase was like refusing to throw the ball,
yep,
but every time we did throw the ball, good things happened.
Yep.
Yeah, just chuck the ball deep. It's the thing. I hate to burst the bubble here. It works against Oregon State. So we had the opportunities to do it. It's not going to work against Utah, and I don't think it's particularly going to work against most of the other teams that have like really solid athletes in the secondary. But like the time to do it was Oregon State, and the time has passed. But yes, I would have loved to have seen them just like chuck the ball deep. Good things happen. Like when Monster would make those throws.
That's the thing with Monster is that if you look at all of his throws so far this year, our eval of him going into the year was he's very good at making deep throws. It's the intermediate, the short ones where it's questionable, where he's overthrowing guys or, throwing behind or too far in front of guys. But on deep throws, he's been pretty dang accurate and made some like NFL level throws. Not saying he's an NFL level quarterback, but he's made some NFL level throws. And yeah, that's the thing. It works with Monster because he can put the ball accurately down the field enough where it won't be in harm's way, right? We can't be chucking deep down the middle on a two-man zone, two safety deep zone, right? We can't be doing that. But with Monster throwing the ball, if he can throw 35 yards deep, like at the sidelines, and it's either out or he catches the ball, like, or that Jordan Duncan touchdown throw, like if it's those types of throws, yeah, keep throwing deep.
I think what the issue is that you can't give him enough time for these plays to progress right now.
Yep.
So you'd also, in tandem with that, have to start thinking of ways of moving him out of the pocket and getting him those extra couple of seconds, and then hopefully he has enough time. But no one can throw deep if they only get 1.5 seconds to throw the football.
Yeah, and that's not even on just on the quarterback. You need your plays to develop downfield. Like if it's because most likely on a go route, like we don't have the athleticism to just beat DB straight. So it's going to be, like flood concepts or you're doubling on a CB or a cornerback or a safety, or you're doing double moves down the line. So in order for that to happen, the wide receivers need to get downfield.
Well, I mean,
you need time.
You think about the Oregon State game. We get the ball, like the defense absolutely shuts them down in the third quarter. We take the lead. We have 2 possessions to, get points on the board in great field position. We didn't even touch on how good our field position was that game. It was ridiculous. And you don't take any deep shots. I mean, it's just like there's nothing going on in this offense that is remotely imaginative whatsoever. And not being aggressive in those situations, I don't get it. Like both Nick and Avi said, like we turtle all the time. We like turn in the most conservative team when throw that ball downfield and get the flag. Like make the big play. I think we're so resistant to turnovers, whether the staff says that we are not. Like there's a lot of evidence that we are. And so yeah, anyways, thanks Nick for allowing us to eventually relive the Oregon State game. But yes, I would totally agree with that crazy plan.
We got another one asking about the defense. It says, what's happened to the defense this season that's made it regress from last year's form? I think we already answered that. We don't think it's regressed. If you think it's regressed, okay, yeah, you're entitled to your own opinion, but I mean, from what we've seen so far, we don't think that it's regressed. If anything, it's been the same or improved.
Yeah, I think you have the D-line and you have the loss of Kanasic, and that's pretty much what you could say. But other than that, it's like we're not losing games because of our defense. I mean, we're just not.
Yeah. All right. The last thing is some questions about Bo Baldwin and the hot seat. So let me read you some of the questions that people sent, and then we'll talk about this topic, and then we'll wrap up the day. So what will it take for Wilcox to make a coaching change on offense? What obstacles are preventing him from making a change? Recruiting, continuity, finances, lack of reliable replacements, loyalty, injuries, hope. What does this team have to do to fix this offense? Does Baldwin need to get fired? Is it Baldwin and or Wilcox, or is it injuries to blame? And then the last couple ones were on Discord, which you can join if you're listening to this. How much is Baldwin's buyout? And that's pretty much it. Yeah. All right. So here's what I know. I requested all of the coaches' salaries earlier in the summer after the extensions were announced. And Baldwin's current salary sits at, I believe, $570K with the salary pool increase. I don't have the before, so I don't know what it increased from or if it increased at all. But we do know that they got a salary pool increase. We just don't know where that was distributed to. When Wilcox got his extension, like I think that was one of the key negotiating points for Wilcox, was getting a bigger assistant pool or fund pool. So yeah, so that's where we sit at $570K. Just to put that in perspective, I looked up some of like the top 25 offensive coordinators, not by pay, but like just TCU's offensive coordinator, Sonny Cumby.
Probably makes $8 to $1 million.
$700K. Living in Texas. So taking into account cost of living and all that good stuff, we're not nearly competitive with that. So that's where we're at. The other thing is most I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm not gonna say it, but most times when you hire a coordinator, you give him a 3-year deal. If Baldwin's deal is a 3-year deal, and I can clarify this in next week's pod once I look at the contracts again, but if it is a 3-year deal, this year would be his last year, which would mean that it doesn't make any sense at this point to fire him right now, because one, you'd be spending money to get rid of a guy you could get off of for free come a month's time. The second thing is, in my view, is there anyone on the staff right now that could step in and be the play caller and the interim offensive coordinator right away? There's no one on the staff right now that has had that prior experience, right? Tui used to be the passing coordinator at UCLA when he was there, but that's still not like drawing up a game plan, like doing the offensive coordinator duties and play calling duties. So I think that's also one of the things that you can't really do that, because with like the Washington State thing, when Tracy Clay stepped away as the defensive coordinator, they had 2 guys that they put in as co-defensive coordinator because they were already game planning like the run defense and the pass defense, and they kind of just picked like what they were going to do, on everything. So it kind of worked in their favor. I think right now for this staff, there's all those reasons. One, we're not a program that does that. 2, realistically, it'd be a waste of money, including like knowing how much deficit we have. And 3, there's no viable candidate that would take over as the interim. Like if you were to fire Bo Baldwin right now, you're legitimately punting on the last 5 games of the season. So, because you'd be pretty much implementing a first-year offensive coordinator for 5 games. So, with no prior experience. So that's where we're at. And I can totally understand why people want him gone or have him on the hot seat. So, but feel free to give your thoughts on it.
I think some of the first questions were about like, what is it going to take for Wilcox to, make a change? And I think like the writing is on the wall. So if you watch any of his interviews with how grumpy he is, I would guess that things aren't all sunshine and butterflies right now. I don't think there's any way, especially in college athletics, where you have this donor pressure. There's going to be a lot of donor pressure, and that makes its way to the AD, and the AD and Wilcox are super close. So,
that's pretty much what got Buff fired, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And, so I think, exactly, you're going to see the change will happen. I think that this is the game that sealed the deal. The evidence is there. Why didn't it happen earlier? I think continuity, I'm sure financials, but I think continuity more than anything else. I think you kind of look, you could really excuse last season. We were excusing this season. Like we said, okay, Bowers got hurt last year, and then you had to put in a backup quarterback, and then you had the 2 quarterback thing, and we almost had 8 wins, if it wasn't for some badly timed turnovers. And okay, like maybe we do it. I talked myself into Baldwin staying. So it's not hard to see like why he made that decision after the Cheez-It Bowl. And it does have an impact on recruiting. I think the bigger risk is keeping Baldwin on and letting this talented recruiting class see firsthand, letting Chris Street and Filkins and these guys like see, this offensive performance and be like, I don't know, like why would I want to join that? What we want to have people saying is like, I can fit myself in there and take this team to the next level. I'm just the missing piece, and right now we have nothing to really identify. Like, and so I think there'll be good candidates out there, and I would fully expect a move to happen. And if we do go into Utah and get shut out or score 3 points or score 7 points, I wouldn't be surprised to see a move happen. What is the negative ramification of letting go of Baldwin financially this year versus like at the end of the year?
I don't know. I don't know what that is. Like it could be it could be like
I would think
judging by like Coach Fox's contract and like Vikings contract, it's by date. So if he's fired prior to this date,
then there's
it's
a
like
buyout.
Yeah. Like the buyout goes now. Like Vikings contract was by like it was a date in the summer. So if he was released by this date in the summer, then so his contract was weird because there was no buyout. It was just the remainder of his contract, which was a 5-year, $5 million contract. So it's $1 million a year, right?
Yeah.
So if it passed this date in the summer, then you let him go afterwards, like you owe him that much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like the time when we let Viking go, we owed him $3 million.
Right.
Because so I don't know what the thing with Baldwin is. It could be one of those things where if he's let go in the middle of the season, he still owed the rest of his contract, which would mean the rest of his salary, or like it's like 1.5 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I just don't think you can pitch the dream to recruits on a lifeless offense, and that's sort of what we've seen. And you're at the bottom of the bottom. So, I don't really see, even if it is counter to what we believe in as a program, how you would if it's really that bad against Utah next week. It's just gonna be bedlam on. But yeah.
I mean, the flip side of that recruiting thing that I'd want to discuss would be what made them want to commit to us to begin with then, right? Because these guys that are committed to us are committed to us because one, they either got sold a vision, two, are real tight with the staff. Like there has to be a reason for them to commit. Like it's not just their relationship with Justin Wilcox. Most of these guys probably have only met Wilcox once or twice. Most of these guys are probably tight with Burl Toller, Nick Edwards, Bo Baldwin. Well, at least we're talking just the offensive guys, right? So there was a reason for these guys to commit to the school if they truly believed in it, and they committed early too. So like some of them committed early. So they saw the tape from last year. Like they know, and they probably saw some of the tape so far this year. Like if they haven't decommitted by now and are like, oh yeah, I do not want to play for this coach. Like I don't think that's as big as of a concern if, let's say, we were to extend Baldwin. If anything, if we were to extend Baldwin, I think some of those guys might stay on versus if we were to get rid of him in December, like right around signing period, then those guys probably jump ship to the number 2 school that they were more in contact with because that staff and you were sold on that vision of that school for a year. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Because
you have to build those relationships, right? And if if we let's say we fire Baldwin at the end of the season, it's like let's say at the end of November, right? We probably won't hire a new offensive coordinator till mid-December, late December. That's early signing period. And so if these guys want to decommit and sign elsewhere, there's zero time for any offensive coordinator to come in and convince them to stay and build that relationship and make them want to stay. Plus, even if they sign their letter of intent with us and they find out we get a new offensive coordinator in, and the new offensive coordinator, either one, doesn't value that kid as highly as they thought, or two, they don't have a offensive scheme or part for them. We're not going to hold them hostage over their NLI. We're going to let them go, and they're going to go. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that we should keep him on for the sake of holding the staff or for the sake of holding the recruiting class together. But I don't think the recruits would decommit just because we decided to keep him on, if that makes sense. Because they're already committed to us.
I do. I think you'll see people flip. Well,
until they sign their NLIs, there's always a chance of guys flipping, and we saw that, just last year and the year before with Maldonado and with Mafi.
But guys flip because of what they see. They flip from what they see though. They'll see the product on the field, and like you're committing in June, and then you're being sold, hey, we're gonna be much better, right? And then you see this, like if we go 4-8, like they're gonna be like, what the hell, right? This program isn't trending up. This program is trending down, and that's different from what I was told 6 months ago. And so I think, yes, there's a bunch of different reasons why guys commit to the program, but I do think like making that move and knowing that there's a lot of reasons besides the coach that they commit to the program, I think there may be an opportunity to sell, hey, stay on to this thing and we're going to improve the offense and we're going to hire someone. But I don't know. I'm not opposed to seeing Tui have a chance to call plays, who's probably the only person there that could take on that role. I just think if your realistic outlook is there's a 0% chance this offense gets better for the rest of the year, then at what point do you just sort of say, F it, I'm going to, just try something new and try something different, because what we currently have is getting us nowhere. At some point you might want to pull the plug. I don't know I'm not saying it's the time, but like, if I'm just saying, if next week goes really poorly, like we score 7 points, like I think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, it's just the financial stuff and like the bureaucratic stuff of what goes on with, especially within college athletics, is so different, right? And like, it's not like the NFL where money is abound. Like, I think it's so late in the season now too, where it's just like, what are we gonna do financially? Like, we're gonna have to pay him his salary anyways. We'd be basically giving away free money. Then the year, like, we can let him go for free. I think that's probably where you have to stand, unless some donor comes in with the buyout and is just straight up like, here it is, let's make a statement.
I just don't know if I don't think there's a buyout. Like, I don't know if there's a buyout on it.
There has to be a buyout because it's a contract.
Right. So, but I mean, if it's the buyout is just the remainder of the contract, and it's like, yeah, we're going to pay you to do this. If we're going nowhere, we're getting nothing out. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's like, why not make that move? I personally don't see why you wouldn't make it if it's just like, yeah, we owe you the rest of the money. Like, it's dead weight. We're getting nothing. We're not recruiting well. We're not, like, on the offense side of, like, I'm not saying we're not, but like at that point, like, are we recruiting anyone? Are we closing on anyone that we're really optimistic about? Are we showcasing something different? Are we being competitive? If all of those things are no, and then you start to wonder, like, is the guy like really checked in? Is he here? Is he present? Is this like, is there a real effort behind changing things? And if like that's not, like, make the switch and give the guy something to believe in, because what you don't want to do is subject your players to like this season of misery and have them all transfer and lose players again, right? Because you also have to think about the guys that we have on the team that are seeing this and being like, okay, so we're just going to sit back and support this horrible product. Like, everyone can see that this output is unacceptable. So I think, like, I'm not advocating for doing it. I'm just sort of trying to tear down a little bit of the wall against why, if there's another game, and like we've said some pretty negative things, like, and in acknowledging that, like, I think there's opportunity for change if need be.
Yeah, I think the dream scenario here would just, people would just say, like, get rid of him, like, put in an interim, like. So that's the thing for me. Like, if this was a lost season already from the get-go, like, Washington State's like defensive coordinator thing, like, that one's weird, and I think there was a lot more clashing of heads between Tracy Claeys and what's his name, head coach
Mike Leach.
Wow. Went over my head. I think there was a lot more in that relationship than there was about like how they were playing it and whatnot, because Tracy Claeys in his like exit, like, little tweet thing was like, like, we didn't see eye to eye, or like there were like, we couldn't figure out a way of which direction we wanted to take the defense. So I think it was more of like a clash of ideas more than the product on the field. In this type of case, like, you're still playing for a bowl game here. I think it's like when you cut your head coach when, like, what Oregon State did when they lost, or when they fired Mike Riley, right? And interim head coach was Corey Hall. That season was already lost. Like, they just tested him out to see, like, let's see what Corey Hall can do. Like, maybe he is our next head coach, or maybe he's someone that we want to keep on as something else. But you give him that opportunity to just rejuvenate the team and have something for the fan base to, like, look forward to the next year. I don't think our program's at that point yet, which is why I don't think we fire him, because we're still playing for a bowl game. We still have 5 games left and we still have 4 wins. Like, if we had, let's say this was flipped, right? Let's say we were, I don't know, like 3-4 or 2-5. I think, yeah, easily with these types of performances, I think easily you make that switch and you just say the season's pretty much done anyways. Like, we're not playing for anything. We're not playing for a bowl game. Like, there's nothing we can attain by winning more games this season other than playing spoiler. Then you make that change and you see what something you have in there, or maybe if you can, spark something. But I think the big word that we're talking about here is continuity, because we're still playing for something. You're hoping that guys can just do just enough to win a few more games to get to that bowl game. So maybe that's maybe the thought here, because it's not a totally lost season, at least not yet. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the time we have for. As always, you can tweet at us, at me at Rob11HWNG, at Andy at
Andy J Beast Mode.
You can find us on Twitter at CGBBearcast. You can also email us, cgbbearcast@gmail.com. If you're listening to this, that means you found us, but we're also on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can find all our stuff at CaliforniaGoldenBlogs.com, and of course, you can also, as Andy said at the beginning of the show, write your comments and your reviews on Apple Podcasts, and we will read them on the air. So, I think that's it. Is there any other little announcements we usually do at the end? But I guess just to end, Utah game Saturday. I believe it's on FS1.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. FS1. I was like, is it Fox or is it FS1? I couldn't remember, but
FS1, I think.
FS1, 7 p.m. It'll be a late night. I know Avi's making the trip out to Salt Lake City, so if anyone else is listening and making that trip out, be sure to hit him up. I'm sure he'd love to, chit chat and stuff and do some things before the game, maybe after the game as well. But be on the lookout for that. And of course, our Discord channel, our CGB Discord channel. You can find the link to it on Twitter. If not, just DM me at Rob11HWNG and I'll get you the link. And I think we're going to try and do the thing we did just this past game, where I'll be on the Discord voice channel for about 30 minutes at some point after the game, and we can just chit chat about the game. You can ask me things, or we can talk about any topics or concerns or anything about the game that we just witnessed, so everyone can kind of decompress. So, yep, and that's pretty much it. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.